Okay, I believe everybody's back. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's go group 8. What were some things you talked about? Give us something that you picked up on or enjoyed about the discussion with Jenny.
We kind of talked about how it was pretty cool, like how she talked about making connections and how to be professional. Like she kind of emphasized that being professional a lot, but making connections. And when she worked at that radio station, and she said that her boss kind of knew her position, what she worked in, so she was like on the top priority of taking that spot, which she ultimately did.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's thinking back on my academic experience, that was something that was really drilled into, kind of our brains, of just being ready for opportunities, and how you can be ready is being professional in every setting that you are, that you're presented with. Let's switch. Let's go group number 1. What were some things that in terms of format, or some things that kind of you would prefer different in terms of kind of the setup? What were some things that you would like to see in kind of the last 2 interviews that I'm going to be conducting? What were some things that, in terms of feedback, what are some feedback points? Group 1.
I don't know. I liked it a lot, but I feel like, I mean, a lot of stuff that goes into sport management is just experience. So as long as you talk about those a lot, and like how they use that, and just the steps they took to get to the position they're at today, is what I really just want to know.
Yeah. I think I wanted to, and I believe with Ben and Travis, I think being able to actually have them in our group chat or group platform, I think is the piece that I'm looking forward to the most. That way you can actually kind of interact with them a little bit, and hear them speak, rather than just kind of watching a video link. I think that is going to be equally as beneficial for you. Okay, let's go group 2. What were some other things that they kind of stood out to you? What were you not impressed with? About in some of the topics of discussion. What kind of surprised you? What kind of made you kind of maybe think twice on? What are some of those topics?
We didn't really have any negative things other than with it being in recorded, but not in person. We all thought that she gave good examples of like how she worked her way up in the sports industry, which is very hard to do since it's very competitive, she said. So that's what we all thought.
Okay. Yeah, I think one of the, and Jenny's a really good example of this, and it kind of reinforces some of the additional conversations that we've had in kind of previous classes, where there isn't necessarily a single defined path for advancement. Like she's had probably 3 or 4, different collections of opportunities, which is good. I think, once again, that's what attracts people to sport, is just being able to, have a different experience and different, ability to use your creative side. And certainly, I think she uses quite a bit of her creative side within her job title and job responsibilities. Let's go group 5. What were some other things that were discussed?
We kind of talked about the atmosphere at NBC Sports and how we were kind of surprised with how tight knit it seemed, and like she called it like almost like a family. And then with all the clubs and stuff as well, kind of how that helps her get closer to all of her coworkers.
Yeah, I think that is, well, I believe is kind of a newer trend within the corporate setting. I have friends that work in Under Armour in downtown Baltimore, and that certainly is a relatively newer company in the big picture. But I think companies are realizing that if they are able to invest resources and invest opportunities within their workforce, it's going to really motivate and engage, the people that are, in the trenches doing the work. And certainly I think that, especially that kind of topic is very relevant within today's lecture at different points, and certainly kind of over the next 2 to 3 class settings. I think for me personally, this is kind of the next 2-3 weeks is some pretty interesting material, kind of talking about leadership management styles, how organizations function within within their individual work settings. So I think that is especially relevant. Let's go group 6. What group 7, sorry. What were some of the things that your group discussed? I think you were one of the smaller groups, I think with 2 people, I believe. Group 7. Okay, I'll start calling on some people. Freddie, I'm not sure which group you were in, but what were some things that you discussed within your group?
We talked about, I don't know, just how interesting it was, like how she just kind of stumbled upon like a career in marketing.
Right.
I thought that was really cool. And then also how she said that she worked just like a lot of jobs, and kind of till she found something that she loved to do and like what she was really good at.
Yeah, I think it's last point, and then we'll move on to today's lecture since I've already used up 25 minutes. But certainly kind of investing the time to, one, be able to have a collection of different, experiences where you can really kind of find and help navigate and find your niche is certainly quite important. So once again, I'm excited to read through some of the other papers that are going to be turned in kind of over the rest of the class period. If it's already done, just hit submit, whatever. I'll try and get those graded by tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon at the latest. I have individual player meetings kind of over the next couple of days, but I should be able to get to that in the evening. Okay, so we will move on to today's lecture. Once again, I hopefully won't take up too much of your time today. Be able to get through this relatively quickly. This isn't necessarily super stimulating material, but it's important to kind of lay the groundwork. So I'm going to share my screen. We'll get going. Okay, so specifically talking about management concepts and how some of these organizations operate, okay? Within any sport organization or within any organization in general, okay? everybody is going to be, every organization is going to want to have a really smooth operation where everybody's, highly engaged, everybody is motivated to perform. Okay, when those things happen, some special things can happen within an organization, and when special things happen within organizations, people are having a good time. Okay, nobody wants to be miserable within their individual job responsibility. Okay, so what exactly is a organization? Okay, this isn't super exciting, but just wanted to make sure everybody's on the same page. So an organization is a social entity that are goal-driven and designed to deliberately be in a structured and coordinated activity to be a high performer. Okay, high performer is something that will be used kind of over the next 2-3 lectures. Okay. It's always easier to accomplish goals when you're working in a team type environment. Okay, most of us have grown up, participating in sports and different things like that. So this is a very relevant one. Okay, and especially kind of as you navigate from the academic setting into the workforce. Things are complicated. Things, jobs and responsibilities require a lot of mental power. Okay, so you're going to be working with teams of people to help, accomplish certain tasks. And oftentimes,
Screen does not look like what your screen looks like. There you go. Oh, never mind.
is there issues with the screen recording?
Well, it looked messed up on my end, but then you fixed it and then you unfixed it. I don't know.
It's fine now. Well,
As long as you just put in present mode again, I think we'll be good.
Okay, I'll just stay out of present mode. Can everybody see that? Are we good, Jack?
Yeah, I think you can put in present mode now, and I think it should work.
Will it? Let me give it a try.
I hope so.
How's that?
That did nothing. That's fine. I still see it, so we're good. Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Is that okay? Just this simple outline view? Okay.
that's fine.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not, like I said, they were having issues with this classroom yesterday, and I thought IT sent somebody over to fix it. So we'll just get rolling, okay? Yeah, if something like that happens again, if for whatever reason, just shout at me. I'm just kind of walking around, of course, so not necessarily looking at the computer all the time, looking at my notes. Okay, there's a cool, and we'll be able to kind of talk on this a little bit later, but there's, specifically within sports, they use different, or really kind of within any organization, okay? The use of just a simple, like, organizational flowchart almost, of kind of a map per se, to allow people within the organization to have kind of a general idea of all the different moving parts within an organization, okay? Especially within big corporate type settings or professional organizations, whatever, there's a lot of moving parts, and you may only interact with your specific team or maybe 2 or 3 people, that are removed to accomplish goals, okay? You may not necessarily have a super big picture of what the overall organization, but there's a decent example in the book. I think it's on page, 74, 75, one of the first pages within the chapter that kind of outline it, okay? And certainly, I think it's next class I'll be able to kind of, it gives you a baseball organization example within it, so I'll kind of be able to paint a good picture of what, where Sarah Campbell falls within kind of her baseball organization. Okay, so moving forward, organizations are able to accomplish different tasks using economies of scale, okay? These are ways organizations are able to maximize, able to maximize profits or maximize productivity if they are very focused or relatively broad, okay? Within that example of the baseball organization, there's probably 5 or 6 different areas within that organization, and if each individual group, if the marketing office or HR office is able to really kind of focus on one individual, aspect of their work, overall, if an entire organization is really able to, hone in and accomplish goals regularly, you're going to be able to have a pretty large group of production within, you're going to be able to have a larger scale, okay? Economies of scope, okay, is a little bit different, okay? That's kind of a little bit more of a broad picture. Within a broad picture of operation, they're also able to save the organization money because they're not having to spend additional resources finding other groups to be able to accomplish goals, okay? They're able to take on bigger projects because they have more resources to be able to be productive in other areas, okay? Moving forward, okay? Different examples of sport organizations, okay? You have public, hi everybody. Public organizations, these can be state and local government, okay? Organizations that help events, happen. For example, as people were coming back from the breakout rooms or before class, I was supposed to travel to Phoenix, Arizona this last weekend. There was a big showcase there, okay? The complex is a huge complex. It has like 35 soccer fields, okay? It's out in the middle of the desert, okay? The state or local government, we'll say, manages that facility, but because of all of the COVID stuff that's going around, they actually shifted that event from a public organization owned soccer complex, we'll say, and they ultimately had to shift it to a private one, okay? So as a result of that, okay, instead of maximizing 35 fields, they had to convert an entire event down to 11, okay? Ultimately, I decided not to go because just, one, I hadn't been to that complex before. I wasn't sure what the quality of playing surface is going to be like. It was too much of a risk, okay? But within that, you kind of see how, local government, okay, public organizations can have an influence on what's going on, okay? Nonprofit groups, okay? These are obvious, everybody knows what nonprofit groups are, primarily voluntary, a lot of volunteers help manage things, okay, make events go. Nonprofit organizations will have full-time staff members, okay? These people, help facilitate different events and different things that those organizations do, okay? And then, of course, commercial organizations, companies and groups that are trying to make money, okay? Professional sports teams. Very simple stuff. I'm sure everybody has some experience or has a general idea of what these organizations kind of look like. Okay. So now that kind of have a general idea of how organizations are laid out, okay, how organizations, you know, maximize their, you know, workforce to accomplish goals. These are some additional, you know, resources that companies use, okay, to be able to maximize and accomplish goals. Okay, devising strategies, coming up with creative ways that an organization, okay, can tackle projects. Okay, there's a lot of planning that goes involved when you're running an organization. Okay, and we'll be able to kind of talk about some of those here in a little bit. Okay, of course, using technology. Okay, making sure that companies are up to speed with, you know, the latest and greatest technology that's going to be able to streamline production, or being able to have different, you know, social media platforms to communicate with consumers. Okay, not reinventing the wheel here, pretty easy concepts. And then, of course, exerting power. Okay, being able to have the political knowledge, okay, on how can, you know, how can an organization help the community, you know, or, you know, ensure that their event or their product is being consumed. Okay, the book gave a pretty good example of, you know, being able, professional sports organizations being able to, you know, work together with state and local governments to be able to receive a, you know, portion of, you know, parking fees or concessions, you know, different things like that. If the, you know, for example, like down in St. Louis before the Rams left, that was a, you know, state or city-owned stadium, okay, and, you know, being able to get some type of revenue stream from all of the, you know, sports fans coming into the stadium, okay, the Rams would be able to navigate that. That's a decent example, and I'm sure there's a million other examples. You know, I think, what's the football team that just moved to Las Vegas? Is it the Raiders? I think that may be, since they just built a new stadium, or Minnesota, the Vikings after they built a new stadium, something like that, okay? Certainly when an organization of that size is putting on a number of events, you know, it's bringing in millions of dollars into that local economy, okay? So of course, some organizations are going to be able to have a little bit of power to be able to go over things with the actual state and local government. Okay, because the just overall general environment is constantly changing, okay, organizations have to really work hard to try and stay on top of these things. Okay, for example, if the economic conditions aren't great, how are sport organizations going to be able to come up with creative solutions to be able to, you know, keep fans engaged? Okay, COVID-19 is a perfect example. Okay, right? Money's tight for people. People are struggling. People are losing jobs. Maybe they're not necessarily going to be able to pay, you know, $200, $300, $400 to get into, you know, a Kansas City Chiefs regular season, you know, conference game or whatever, divisional game, whatever it's called with the NFL. Okay, so they're going to have to come up with, you know, creative ways to reach consumers. Okay, that feeds into technology. Okay, making sure that companies are staying on top of all the technology that's available to them to make sure they're communicating with consumers. Okay, and especially with this one, okay, the economy is kind of relatively easy to track. okay, just based on, employment rate, unemployment rate, those different types of things. But so many, small companies are coming up with cool, gadgets and platforms and different things that people can use and organizations can use, okay? They really have to work hard, okay? Certainly the political climate, okay, can make things difficult for organizations, okay? Once again, going back to my example from this weekend, okay? The state and local government wasn't able to, because of all their COVID mandates, okay, down in Arizona. COVID's been pretty rough within Arizona over the last year. They have really strict restrictions, okay? That is certainly something to consider when talking about the environment of organizations. Okay, and then the last one, social and cultural forces. Okay, these very much have a influence on what organizations are doing. Once again, some of these things are a little bit easier to predict. Some of them are more challenging, but the more people you have kind of working, brainstorming ideas, you're going to be able to come up with some pretty creative solutions. Okay? As organizations are kind of going through kind of that planning process, these are some of the questions that they're going to be able to ask themselves as they start to put plans together, as they start to get organized and kind of plan a course of attack to conquer some of these obstacles that they're facing, okay? So for example, that first one, who are the consumers and what are their preferences, okay? If a company's, trying to communicate with young adults, people like us between 20 and 30, okay? They may use social media as a really good platform, Instagram, TikTok, different things like that. But if they're trying to communicate with our parents, maybe Facebook is going to be a little bit better of a platform, or additional email type marketing campaigns, stuff like Jenny's doing. Personally, for me, I just go through and delete all that stuff in my inbox. I'm sure you guys do the same thing. I have a specific email that I just subscribe to a bunch of stuff if I have to, purchase something online, and then I don't even check it. So for me, email marketing is probably not the best way to reach me as a consumer. Okay, who are the suppliers? Who's the competition? Very much relevant within some of these dynamics when companies are trying to develop different strategies. Okay, and then that last one, of course, what role does the government play in that environment, especially within youth sports? This is a huge one. Okay, this is an absolutely huge one. Talking to a lot of college coaches, at the Division I level, and the NCAA is putting on, the dead period. I'm sure we've all heard about that. Starting in, I believe, either April or May, they're going to a quiet period, whatever that means. I think where they're able to either have people on campus and visit with them, but they can't leave campus, called a quiet period, or something like that. But certainly the NCAA is a governing body. Okay, the Olympics are a governing body, so you have a lot of different things within that. Okay, when we're talking about organizations' effectiveness, of course, the effectiveness, just the extent of which goals are achieved. Okay, how successful was the plan? Okay, efficiency, we all know what that means, the extent of which goals are achieved using the fewest possible resources. Okay, were we able to accomplish the mission, but we used up 60, 70, 80% of our resources when, you know, if we were smart and we worked efficiently, maybe only use 20% of our resources, something like that. You get the idea. Okay, couple ways that companies use to gauge the effectiveness. Okay, you have some traditional approaches. Okay, these aren't necessarily right or wrong, but researchers have kind of found some better ones that work within organizations. Okay, so first you have the goal approach. Okay, these focus on just the number of outputs an organization has. Okay, so let's make it simple. Okay, Ford Motor Company, Toyota, whatever. Okay, maybe they're judging on an assembly line, maybe they're able to produce 100 cars a day, maximum output. If everything is flowing smoothly, okay, 100 cars a day on this assembly line is a good day. I have no idea if that's an accurate number or not, but just keeping it simple, okay? If it's a bad day, okay, maybe all their machines broke down, they had to use a lot of resources to be able to fix those. Maybe they only produced 20 cars because the machine broke down at 10 o'clock in the morning, something like that, okay? That's a goal approach. Resource approach. This gauges the success of a company to gather resources. Okay, so if maintaining the vehicle production, okay, you need a lot of, you know, we'll say steel to be able to make and cast, you know, chassis and things like that. If a company's not able to acquire those materials to create chassis, then what good is, you know, creating and gathering all the resources of, you know, the computers that, you know, have the push start mechanism to actually run the car. Okay, there's a little bit of a disconnect. Okay, and then last one here for the traditional approaches are the internal approach. Okay, the ability to process inputs while focusing on internal well-being of the company. Okay, so is the work environment safe for the people out on the floor? Okay, if it's not necessarily great, okay, there's going to be a lot of turnover. When there's a lot of turnover, you're not going to be able to have highly functioning employees because they're constantly having to train new people, right? That makes sense. Okay. Oh, contemporary approaches, excuse me. Okay, here's one of the competing values approach. Okay, looking at focus and structure. Focus looks at the continuum of internal and external production, okay? Employees versus the company. Okay, structure looks at the continuum of flexibility and stability. And then the stakeholder approach relies on the idea that different entities and groups are interested in the focal organization. Okay, different people have different criteria for evaluating effectiveness, okay? Keeping the stakeholders happy, different things like that. And I'll be able to clarify some of these things. Chapters 4 and 5 are very similar. Okay? Today's just kind of an intro within this. Okay? When trying to develop strategies for solutions, okay, this is kind of the template that companies are able to use. Okay? Identify goals. Okay? Develop a mission. Okay? If you're just trying to produce vehicles and you don't have a really good plan, it's probably not going to go well. Okay, that's really simple. Okay, identify objectives. Okay. Second point, determine strategic objectives. Okay. SWOT analysis can be used here. Okay. Develop some of these smaller goals that you're able to kind of identify and use as part of your planning process here, okay? So that's another thing during my time at York, we used a lot of SWOT analysis projects, and I'm sure other business people have as well. I'm sure you're all very familiar with that, okay? Third one, okay? Of course, going back to that consumer, resources, okay? If you're not able to acquire steel and different materials, you're not going to be able to produce it. So you need a pretty detailed list of everything that you need, okay? For a soccer organization or a soccer tournament company, okay? You're going to need field space. You're going to need, additional sponsors to, have, the referee organization to be able to step in and provide referees, hotel companies to be able to, host all of the teams that travel in, okay? Those are some resources that need to be accounted for. And then, of course, establish a timeline and milestone, okay? When you have a huge event going on like a soccer tournament, okay, there are going to be over 700 teams at this event in Phoenix, okay, and probably pretty similar numbers to the showcase in Dallas that I was supposed to go to this upcoming weekend, okay. You're going to need a pretty aggressive timeline on, all of the logistics, because if you're scrambling, 4 days before the event's supposed to start and you don't have any of your referees assigned, probably not going to be a very good event, okay? All of this stuff is pretty self-explanatory, but it's good to be able to walk through it, okay? Moving on to organizational culture, okay? Going back to kind of the dynamic or the environment, okay, of a specific organization. Each organization is a little bit different, right? So stories and myths, okay, very much a something that's kind of key and essential to each organization individually, right? So Under Armour, for example, okay, Under Armour was started, I'm not even sure what year, we'll say like 1995. Okay, the founder was a University of Maryland football player. Okay, he didn't like how the cotton regular t-shirt felt after practice, underneath all of his pads and stuff. Okay, so he developed a technology, dry fit type material that was moisture wicking, all of that stuff. That's the story of how Under Armour was founded. Okay, Apple, for example, was founded in the garage of Steve Jobs. Okay, there's a ton of different, examples of it. Those are just 2 or 3, but you can kind of see how that helped form the identity, okay, or the culture within an individual company. Okay, Nike as well. Bowerman, track and field coach. He was producing shoes in his garage with a waffle maker. Okay, it's something crazy like that. Okay, a lot of symbols, language, different things that you can kind of see and hear around the office. Okay, I have a friend that works in Target in like the corporate type setting of Target. Okay, and they're not allowed to say problems or issues. Okay. They have to say opportunities, okay? That's just kind of one example with the language piece, but Of course, every organization has kind of unique lingo, unique language that kind of, you know, teams or people within the organization use, okay? And it's okay, once again, I said this, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago, I can't remember. As a person fresh off of a college campus heading into a professional organization, you're not expected to know all of these different things, right? Okay, but you're gonna have plenty of opportunities to be able to pick up on these things. And maybe as you start to, you know, interview with an HR manager, you're gonna be able to really start to pick up on a lot of these things. And then certainly once you get a job, once you land a job and start working at an organization, you're gonna be fully submerged. Okay, physical setting, okay? I had the opportunity to kind of poke my head into the new weight room here on campus. And, you know, the walls are bare and all that stuff, but, you know, being able to have cool graphics and all of that stuff all over the walls, you know, that's pretty unique as well. Symbolic artifacts, okay? Clemson football, they rub a rock, Howard's Rock, at the top of the hill. My dad was a professor at Clemson, so I grew up there. So I'm sure everybody's seen the football team run down the hill, but so those are some unique aspects to organizational culture. We're wrapping up here, I promise, probably 5-10 more minutes, okay? Formal organizations, okay? Organizations, and this goes back to the organizational, like, kind of flow chart, we'll say, okay? Formal organizations, HR departments have all of this stuff and kind of what makes the individual organization unique. They have resources to help employees fully settle into a new job. Different things like that, okay? It helps because for somebody, you know, like us, who are just entering the workforce, okay, the more things that are gonna be laid out for you, okay, we're all smart people. If you give us the information, we're gonna be able to review it, we're gonna be able to learn it, and we're gonna be able to, you know, we're gonna be able to join the organization as effective members. Okay, so all of this stuff is laid out, but, you know, once again, going back to the previous slide, organizational culture, each organization is a little bit different. And that's what, you know, is pretty neat. And then, of course, you saw Jenny talk about it. In formal and informal groups, you have different clubs and organizations or, you know, task forces. Okay, that's another really common, especially in an academic setting, different task forces with different groups on, you know, in an organization represented to be able to, you know, challenge or come up with solutions to different challenges. Okay? And especially with HR, with that stuff, you know, that is their job to make sure that employees are fully settled and understand what's going on. So, you know, it may kind of, you know, seem, you know, annoying or kind of not something that's super desirable to deal with, okay, with all these trainings and different, you know, things, especially early on when you're just excited to, you know, fully jump into your job, but they do really, really help you, okay? They're designed to make that transition smooth for you, okay? And then this will be the last slide we go over today, okay? But I thought I had a picture of, I guess not. I'll be able to show you guys next week, but this is kind of specifically talking about some of those organizational hierarchy charts or flow charts, whatever you want to call it. I'm looking at it here in the book. It's on page 73. Okay, if you have your textbook handy or that PDF file, whatever. But in terms of kind of like that vertical axis, okay, that is the number of tiers or the number of levels within an organization. Okay, so like let's say you have the president, you have the vice president, you have a couple different managers here, and then you have the entry level folks. That's a very vertical organization, okay? Just kind of leapfrog your way all the way up and up until you reach that upper level management of, you know, vice president or president, okay? Some organizations, like how I would consider this baseball organization flow chart that I'll be able to show you next week, is kind of horizontal, okay? You have, of course, you have a couple of upper level managers, okay? You have stakeholders, chair of trustee, board of trustees, whatever. But then below that, you have all of these different, you know, groups within an organization, okay? Just focusing on kind of the business side of the baseball organization here. You have the director of PR, public relations. That's certainly a very important one. You have corporate sales, director of sponsorships. That's one area, okay? You have director of marketing, director of operations. Those are 3, 4, 5 different levels of groups within one professional organization, okay? They all may not necessarily report to the same person, those each organizations, but you can kind of see how, you know, all of those are very much kind of on the same plane, same level of importance. So there's kind of more of a horizontal spread within that rather than a vertical spread, okay? And then spatial complexity. This is kind of more geographic based, okay? So you have FIFA, for example. I'm a soccer guy, governing body of the world of international soccer, we'll say. Well, each individual country has their own governing body, okay? The Olympics have different organizations, you know, scattered around to be able to, you know, organize their country and, you know, formalize who's actually competing in the Olympics in terms of individual athletes and who qualifies, different things like that, okay? That's, within those organizations, it's going to be very, very difficult to be able to have one single office in the entire world to be able to conduct business. So there, you're going to need some help, and that's why they kind of have a different group, you know, UEFA within soccer. Once again, you have CONCACAF, which is another kind of governing body with geographically within kind of the soccer realm of things. Okay. Standardization and formalization. Okay, two very similar things. Okay, I'll get to centralization here in a moment, but standardization and formalization are written processes to help written processes to guide organizations. Okay, standard operating procedures. Okay, all of these things are there to help organizations accomplish goals. Okay, and then centralization. Standardization are written processes to help guide organizations. That allows managers kind of in those lower levels to be able to make decisions. Okay, and then centralization, This is a type of structure where only the higher ups, you know, directors and VPs and presidents make those decisions. Now, a couple different important things to consider when talking about standardization and centralization. Okay, so the cost of things, okay, if you're working on a huge project that's millions of dollars, for example, the weight room over there, okay, you want the president and the athletic director and the dean of students and those higher ups to be able to make decisions. They're not interested in what an assistant coach has to say about that, right? So the timing of all of that as well. If there are timing restraints, lower level managers aren't going to be able to, you know, make those decisions, okay? If it is time sensitive, okay, then you're going to be able to want, you know, kind of the people actually in the trenches making those decisions, because they're going to have the most accurate and up-to-date information, and you're not going to have to relay things up the chain of command just to communicate. You need action. If you need action, okay, standardization approach is a little bit better. Okay, and then of course the qualification of employees. Okay, if you have a highly educated and stable workforce, you're going to be able to rely on your managers to have a better understanding of what's going on, and they're going to be able to make decisions. Okay, but if you have kind of an unstable, going back to that Ford Motor Company, where if you're able to, you know, have new people coming in and training, okay, they're not, those new people aren't going to necessarily be able to have, you know, the knowledge or the know-how or the experience to be able to make some of these decisions. So you're going to have to rely on some of the higher ups to make those decisions for them. Okay? I know that's kind of a lot to kind of process, but that's a decent stopping point for today. So once again, chapters 4 and 5, kind of the next 3 to 4 units are going to be talking about leadership and management. Okay. So we'll be able to kind of tackle things. No homework for Thursday. You have 20 minutes if you want to submit your interview reflection. Okay, that's due. That link will close at 2:30, and then yeah, we should be good to go for next Thursday. So have a good rest of your day. Stay warm. Hopefully the weather will be turning here in the next couple of days. I will stick around if you have specific questions or anything like that, but have a good rest of your day.
I do have a question. What are you doing like right now? Because like I want to head over to like the W's because like I need to sign my academic progress report for my sport.
Of course, yeah. So I'll just be here. You know where my desk is. I'm right across from Spitz. I can meet you there, and I'll be able to sign anything you need.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
We'll see you soon, Chris. Andrew, we okay?